Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Koski and Funday back at it again, speaking it for you and yours. And this is from the series, excuse me, from the great Honorable Dr. John Henrik Clarke, We Have No Friends. When Feminism is from the Bazaar magazine, we taking this from the lessons of our honorable teacher, Dr. John Henrik Clarke, And this one deals with the white female. This one was Bazaar magazine. This came out last year, August 16th of 2018. When feminism is white supremacy in heels. From the long policing of white-splaining, the liberal white women feminists is more toxic than they realize, explains Rachel Carl. When I heard about the tragic murder of 18-year-old Nina Wilson, who was stabbed to death in an unprovoked attack in Oakland last month, I feel my heart begin to bleed. My community of black women were grieving yet again. As we grapple with the realities of Nina's death, I began to use Instagram to facilitate a discussion and flesh out questions like, how many more black women and girls must die before the mainstream media considers it a worthy story to cover? How could they possibly take this away from her? White male murderer who so gently in handcuffs while black men are thrown to the ground during traffic stops. Why aren't they recording the wails of the mother and the tears of her father enough for the whole world to demand justice right now? And where are the voices of all my white feminist friends when a black woman has been tragically murdered? Almost immediately, at my request, hundreds of commentators asked the white women who they saw as friends and as leaders to use their platform to highlight the tragedy of Nina's death with the same outrages as their black feminist allies. And many did, both demanding that justice be served while expressing their disbelief that such a story hadn't gained national attention in the same way that Lacey Peterson or John Benet Ramsey had. But there was just as many white women whose bios claimed titles like social justice warrior and intersexual feminist, that somehow took this call of solidarity as a personal attack. Instead of sharing in the outrage of Nina's brutal murder, they came with fury for being tagged in a post that they felt challenged their own perceived feminist accomplishment. There were grand displays of defensiveness, demands that they be acknowledged for all the things they had done for black people in the past, and a terrifying lashing out that including racial slurs and doxing. The fragility of these women was not surprising to me. And in a crucial moment of showing up for our marginalized community, there was more concern about their feelings and egos as opposed to the fight for women as a whole. What could have been much needed in an integral display of solidarity and true intersectionality quickly became a live play-by-play of toxicity that white-centered feminism can bring to the table of activism. This type of behavior that rests under the guise of feminism, only as long as it's comfortable, only as long as personally rewarding, only as long as it keeps on brand. But if history of this movement taught us anything, it is that intersectionality and feminism is vital. We cannot forget the ways that suffrage dismissed the voices of black women, sitting them to the backs of their marches. Only for black activists like Ida B. Wells and Anne Julian Cooper to make major moves while fighting for the vote in tandem with their fights for the rights as black people, ultimately shifting the shape of this country. If there not have been an intentional and action-based exclusion of women of color, then the feminist is simply white supremacy in heels. Growing up against this liberal progressive white feminists who refuse to let down their guard of ultimate liberation to actually learn from women of color who have been fighting this fight with grit and grace for generations, is almost a straining part of being a black feminist activist. Still, as disheartening as the actions made of these women who were called in, because my highest hope is that this bizarre episode serve as a lesson, as a dissection, if you will, of the toxic white feminists actually look like. Let's take a dive into the few items of the toxic white feminine playbook. Tone policing. When women of color begin to cry about their pain and frustration and other outrage with the system that has continued to allow our men to be murdered, our babies to be disregarded, our livelihood to be dismissed, what white tell us perhaps we should say things a little nicer if you want to be heard, to be respected and heard. Spiritual bypassing. The easiest way for white women to skirt around the realities of racism is not just to love and light it away. When confronted with ways they have often a marginalized group with their words and actions. They immediately start to demand unity and peace, painting those they harm as aggressive, mean, or divisive. White savior complex. Many white women insist there is no way they could be part of the problem because of their extensive resume of what they have done for you people. Instead of listening to what the women of color are trying to express, they instead whip out the nicest things I have done for black people in the past. Excuse me. Which often includes everything from saying hi to a black man next door every single morning to save a black child through adoptions and treat them just as nicely as my white children. Centering. This is the most common of all. White women get so caught up in how they feel in the moment of a black woman expressing themselves, they completely vacuum the energy, direction, and point the conversation to themselves and their feelings. They start to explain why race is hard for them to talk about and what they think will be a better solution to the topic at hand. Perhaps what white women of color can do to make it more palatable. As these things played out over and over again, it seems painfully obvious that there are many white women believe that the worst thing that can happen to them is to be called a racist. Let me be clear, it is not. Seeing your child gunned down in the street by the police unjustly is much worse. Being turned away from Medicare due to race and underlying biases by medical staff resulting in death is much worse. Being harassed by authorities only to charge yourself instead is much worse. But even moments of explicit dehumanization to the black community haven't been able to rally the majority of the liberal white women to join us in our fight for racial justice. Let me read this again. But even moments of explicit dehumanization of the black community haven't been able to rally the majority of liberal white women to join us in our fight for racial justice. I learned through my works that white women seem only to digress race issue when it's framed in the light of white feminists. So I ought to lay this out of the way. When you try to exclude yourself in a conversation of race by saying things, I don't see color, or I married a black man and have brown kids, that is just irrational as saying a man saying there is no way he can be sexist or misogynist because he has a daughter. When you seek not to be lumped in a conversation about oppressive systems against marginalized people because you view yourself as woke, you are essentially screaming, not all the men. When you try to rationalize police brutality by saying, but black people also kill black people, you're coming from the same argument that men have when they say, you shouldn't have worn that skirt. She deserved to be raped. When you walk into a black and brown space and suggest how they can more aptly reach white people on the basic topic of race, you're basically mansplaining. Now it's only white-splaining, how people of color should approach their own activism. When you begin to feel defensive about the conversation of race and the race demanding explanation, it's like a man walking into a woman's space saying, make me feel more comfortable in this moment, even though at this point in his space is snorting out, how can I make you feel uncomfortable every day in multiple ways? So, what does allyship actually look like? Accepting the reality of this country dynamics, white skin yields white privilege, and an ally is willing to use their privilege to fight with and for those who are marginalized. Allyship means voting for an elected official who has a track record of ensuring the most marginalized among us are heard and advocated for. Allyship means using your sphere of influence, wherever you may be in your dining room table or the boardroom of your company, to call out racist actions and ideals. Allyship means uplifting the voices and experience of people of color so that we are not continuously drowned out and ignored. What makes allyship so hard for most? Many white liberal women have immediate reaction of defense when someone challenges their intentions. And it is the precise moments they need to stop and realize they are actually part of the problem. It is never the offender who gets to decide when they offended someone. If you yourself dismiss the words or the experience of the people of color because you think you're over there overreacting, or because you didn't know, or because it has nothing to do with race, it is often due to your ego, not rationale. Listen and learn instead. Dr. Robin DiAngelo, a white woman sociologist who studied critical discourses, reminds us in her book, White Fragility, that the key to moving forward is to do what we do with our discomfort. We can use it as a door out, blame the messenger, and disregard the message, or we can use it as a door by asking, why does this unsettle me? What would it mean for me if this was true? Racism is American as pie, and in order for feminism to truly be progressive and intersectionalist, white women must face the fact and begin to take their load of work. We are long overdue to dismantle this system, which, if not intentionally and aggressively addressed, will defeat us all in the end. This is done by Rachel Crowdell for the Bazaar magazine. Now, if Rachel Crowdell would have went to on the Facebook page, YouTube page, and stuff like that, the Coach Get Funny page, and we already put up that white feminism, which she talked a little bit about, was based in getting the white woman to vote so they could nullify the black vote. That's all white feminism was about. You know what I'm saying? All them women, Drew Stanton and all them people like that, Kenny, Elizabeth Kenny Stanton, and the other top feminists of the day, they were all racist. You know what I'm saying? Half of them started up the WKKK, and that's a fact. You know what I'm saying? So they was all part of the Ku Klux Klan of the day, whoop-de-whoop, and their job was to marginalize the black vote. Because during that time, they were trying to nullify the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which is all deal with just black people voting. But if they could not nullify that, you know what I'm saying, they went down to the Southern legislature and said, well, give us white women the right to vote, and we'll vote with the white man every time, which they have. It's proven track factual. Every time the white woman got it, the white man, whatever, any type of so-called progressive in this manner thing, the white woman always stood with the white male. She was not going to leave him stranded and backed his tone up, whatever the tone may be. So we as a people got to understand that and see that for what it is. You know what I'm saying? We have no friends. The white feminist best friend is the white conservative male or liberal. It don't make no difference. But they're not going to give it. They're going to keep their paternalism and keep it on going down for themselves. They're not going to stop that and give that power up, control it for you. People got to be able to speak crazy. And you have to be crazy, like Dr. Amos Wilson said, to believe in this stuff. Same thing Dr. Ben said, same thing Dr. Leonard Jeffrey said. You have to be out your mind that they're going to call for their power for you. That's another thing, question too, and I'm going to end it on this point, about how black people saying, well, you could be pro-black and still date outside your race. No, you can't. They're not doing that. Even when they do date outside their race and have kids, brown babies, they still pro-white. And they're trying to teach their kids how to be pro-white with the thinking. So we got to wake up to that. Anyway, this is Coach Get Fun Day, y'all. Much love. You know what I'm saying? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It's been picking up. And like I said, it's a series about we don't have no friends. Dr. John Henrik Clarke. Much love to you. Shout out to that ancestor. Peace.